just a reintroduction before I get started with my projects. We are camping for the week up here in the beautiful Colorado mountains. We are on Gargoyle Pass, which is about 10,000 feet high. We are surrounded by a nice forest. There's a meadow and of course this lovely brook. It's definitely one of our favorite spots to come to. Now for this year, our first camping trip has been very late, because it was rather cold and very rainy. But that of course means that up here everything is beautiful and lush. I brought my computer for editing with me and I was able to do it outside under the trees. But for the voiceover, I think I have to go inside as there's just too much wind out here and too much background noises. But I want to get this video ready to post, so as soon as I return, I can put it up. Here's our little trailer in the background, easy to drive up these mountain roads and perfect for us. So here's my first project of today. I made this right at the beginning of the year and it's a shrine of sorts, and I used two components from another project I made way back. Once in a while I recycle my own art pieces, either because I'm not happy with them anymore or they just have some pieces to them that I could use much better elsewhere. And that was the case with this. The handle and the doors came from this assemblage over here, which some of you might remember. Now this does have some cool bits and bobs, and I kept all of them to be included in future projects, but I just wasn't happy with the color anymore, and neither did I like the way the doors fit, or well, rather didn't fit. So I reused them here. I added a magnetic closure on two pieces of chain. Those are colored green to match the background. They are attached with jump rings to these ornate tiny handles. The doors are secured with tiny hinges and they open nicely. Now I started this with a slightly larger version of one of these. You have seen me use those before. That gave me a nice sturdy background. Then I added a front panel made from cardboard, and of course this time I made sure that my opening would match the doors very well. I of course glued everything together, first with painter's tape and then a layer of paper mache. That made it all very strong and also gave me nice texture. The photos here show that I added black gesso to the outside and white gesso to the inside. In time I decided to add more color, so I used a neon green acrylic paint together with a gold metallic, and I think I achieved a nice mottled look, which I'm very fond of. But now to my little idol in the middle here, I have a photo that shows you what it looked like before I spray painted it black. I started with a round lid and added the bottom layer of the larger items first. Then I added 3 more layers, always getting a bit smaller. I used broken jewelry, I used beads and charms, broken toys, I used handyman tools and items, and so on. And then in the middle I placed this baby doll face. I filled it in with some foil and added some white gesso to it. Next I will point out some of the details to you. Kids' bubble blowers, there are some drills, there's a wrench, there are some clock hands, there are smaller things like flowers, a little bird talking into his ear, there's a shoe, there's a crown, there's a frog, there's a skull, there's a star, a sea star, a little sunshine, and so on. For the stand I used a plastic toy piece and I added one of those spiral jewelry rings to it. I kept the coloring of the focal point very simple, a bit of gold ribbon buff just on the hair and on some of the edging, and the other elements were colored in with this Prima product. It's a very shiny, shimmery green paint. It's called Unicorn Hair and it works great for dry brushing. I did add a tiny bit of brown acrylic paint, dry brushed it over all the black parts just to give it a little more warmth. I really like the little chain with the magnetic closure. It reminds me, I guess, of the real thing where these shrines are often locked up with chain and key. So here at the end you can see one more time that I did add little feet. Those were little wooden blocks that just happened to have the right size, and it just adds to the look. So that's it for project number 1. I hope you liked it, even though I only have photos for this one, but the next one will have video footage. I start with a photo of a project I completed a while back, and you might remember. If not, you can find it here on my channel. I show it because I want to point out the background. That was part of a broken wall clock my daughter gave me, and today I want to use the other part. Both are so cool that I didn't want to use them up in just one project. So for this one, I removed the glass, which is terribly scratched, and made a new background using a double layer of foam board and this packaging tape that activates with water and is very strong. I covered this board with it on all sides, all around the edges, and then also added some paper mache to one side. For that, I used some old book pages. Next, I have a holiday ornament, a pair of wings, but I want to get them apart, so I used my wood burner, and yes, it stinks and smokes, but it worked. I melted down the tips just a bit and the rough edges. Here I pulled out some bits to start fiddling with the face. You can see some bottle tops, there are some glue bottle tops, there is an empty tape roll, and the triangular shape is from an old electric shaver. Jumping around a bit, I start working on the body. I use 2 small mint tins, a small round wooden plaque, and some wooden blocks just to get this more dimensional. The next part is really a very lengthy process until I'm happy with the way it all looks, and I will try to explain some of the details, but I do not have the complete footage here, but I believe you get a good idea of how I go about putting these things together. So let me turn you over to some music. Anything you need to know will be in the captions, and I will be back talking to you in just a wee bit. Enjoy. And the last step I have captured for you on video is this part where I add some lace to the rim of the frame. I use my gel medium, and when this is all dry, I covered the whole thing with black gesso. And yes, here's my completed project already. I know it's a big jump ahead, but I did lose a bit of footage there, and I will explain. So I took my gargoyle and I glued him to the background with my E6000. I glued down the wings, and then I attached the hands in a way that they hold on to the rim. Now the whole fellow got a bit heavy because of all the elements I added to him. So I added a strong hanger with screws, nuts, some D-rings and a wire. And I also added just a little bit of Prima wax copper to the lace and some gold ribbon buff to those nuts that came with the frame and of course the rim. Even the rest of the gargoyle was colored with just those two mediums. I also added just a few more details. First of all, he has a little bit of hair here on the top. It does get entangled a little bit when he lays down, but otherwise it moves freely because it's only attached at one point, and it was one of these jewelry tassels made from little pieces of chain. And next, of course, his eyes. Those are just beads I colored with my acrylic paints. And I picked up the color again in these little jewels I added here and there. Most of them are real turquoise, and I also added some underneath the wings. You can't see it here very well, but I think later on in the photos you get a glimpse of the color. I absolutely loved working on this little fellow, but he still doesn't have a name. So any suggestions, please leave them below in the comments. I always love to hear from you with any kind of feedback. I'm really happy with the way this gargoyle came together. I like that he's kind of looking out of the frame with his head tilting down a bit and of course his hands resting on the rim. I like his expression as well. He looks a little pouty, but on guard. Now his dimensions may be a bit off, arms may be a bit short, but then again, he's a gargoyle, a fantasy creature, so who knows? Thank you so very much for coming today. I will see you soon again. Bye bye for now.